Hi, I'm Marcus with Costa Farms, and as you can see, today we're doing something a little bit out of the norm, but that's fine. Trust me, I will take care of you. This is the beginner's guide to taking a plant out of a pot and moving it to another, usually slightly bigger pot, also known as repotting. So I'm actually going to start this video off with an apology because throughout this video, I'm probably going to be using the terms soil and potting mix and maybe even dirt interchangeably, and they are not the same thing. So when I say soil, know that I mean potting mix, and we can get into the details a little bit later. So when is it time to take your plant out of a pot and put it in a different pot? That's going to depend. So some plants handle being root bound really well, and root bound is a term that means that there's essentially more roots in the pot than one would expect for that size or than is healthy for the plant. Some varieties handle it like a champ, others not so much. So now I'm sure you're asking, well then how do I tell if my plant is root bound? And I'm gonna teach you. So the first thing to watch out for is how often your plant needs watering. As we covered in our water video, there's a lot of different factors that could determine how often your plant needs watering. And one of the most important, aside from light, is how root bound it is. When there's a lot of roots in a pot, your plant's gonna drink water a lot faster. Just think the same way that when Scooby-Doo sticks his straw in Shaggy's milkshake, it gets drank a lot faster. Secondly, if there are roots that are sticking out of the bottom of your grower's pot, like this, that typically, though somehow not always, means that it might be time to up pot. Finally, consider taking your plant out of its pot and just looking with your eyes. If you see that it's about 75% root, then it's time for an upgrade. So when it does come time to up pot, like with that aglaonema you just saw, you only want to go one pot size larger. So if it's in a 6-inch, go to an 8-inch. If it's an 8-inch, go to a 10. If it's in a 10, go to a 12, 12, 14, and then, you know how to do math. So why do you only want to move one pot size up? That has to do with potting. Potting mix is that sponge that holds water, and it's almost the opposite problem as before, where it's now like Daphne ordered an extra large milkshake expecting Scooby to drink it, but then Scooby wasn't there, so she drowned. So your soil holds water, and if you move too quickly, say 6-inch all the way up to a 14-inch, all that soil is sitting there holding water and your plant can't drink it fast enough, and that could lead to all the same issues that you see in overwatering. So I know that there's this want, this instinct, this need to just get rid of all the old soil and replace it with your new shiny soil that you bought at the store. But I'm telling you not to do that, because that can shock your plant. You want to give it a little bit of something that it's used to. Like we mentioned before, gradual changes work best. So as you remove all of the soil that's in that root ball, try to incorporate it in with the soil you're putting into your new pottery, because that can create sort of an even plane as opposed to either a hard line with the soil or all new soil that your plant may not be ready for. And so the reason why you don't just want to plop in that root ball with a new soil and have it be that hard line, because if your soils are holding water at different rates, your plant could seem like it's being watered well, but it's not draining in one area, or the root mass is staying super wet while the top and the outside is staying dry. And so if you're not checking the right place and you have hard lines between soil types, it becomes very difficult to judge how much water your plant has. And listen, I know that nowadays these are our babies, we're all plant parents, but you don't have to be precious with them. You can damage and even remove up to 1/5 to even 1/3, though I didn't say that, you didn't hear that from me, of the roots of the plant, and your plant will be fine and hardy. And in fact, sometimes doing a little bit of damage to the ends of the roots can actually spur new growth, the same way that you'll occasionally prune or trim a plant in order to get new leaves and spur growth that way. Be gentle, but don't worry. I've absolutely damaged some of the roots and even cut some with scissors when they were not able to be removed from the grower's pot because I let things get a little out of hand. And that's pretty much the long and short of it. But I figure, unlike the previous beginner's guide videos, repotting is very hands-on. might be kind of fun if I take you through the steps and we do this together. So you're gonna need a plant, ideally one that's root bound. You're gonna need a pot. You're gonna need a pot to put it in. You're gonna need some dirt. All right, so the first step is actually gonna happen yesterday, and that's just to water your plant the night before. There's a couple reasons for that, but essentially, if your plant is happy and the soil that it's already in is nice and moist, it's just gonna make this process a little bit easier and make it so that your plant is happier during the transplant. The next thing you're gonna want is that new pot. And I'm gonna pause here just to preach for a minute. If you are potting into a pot with drainage, and you'll see it because it's a hole. Drainage is a hole. Basically, if your pot that you're potting into has a hole, you can go ahead and pot right into that. But if you're potting into a pot that does not have drainage, and this is a pot that doesn't have drainage, as you can see, there's no hole. No hole, nowhere for water to go. Then you're gonna want to pot into a grower's pot, like this. And the reason for that is really, really simple. If your pot doesn't have drainage, putting into a grower's pot allows you to remove the plant after you're done watering and just throw away all of the excess water. If you do have drainage, you don't need to do that. But when you're watering your plant, make sure that it's not on an antique table or on precious documents that if you lost them would be bad, because water will drain onto whatever your pot's underneath. So put it on a plate, or I'll put all of my pots with drainage in the sink and water them that way. Just remember, drainage, right in. No drainage, grower's pot, please. So step 2, you take some dirt and you put it in your new pot. And you really wanna create a nice little base level for it and leave room for your roots. You don't want to fill it all the way. So now that you've prepped your plant's new home, it's time to undress your plant. So take it out of its pot, just like this, and it might come easy, or sometimes you might just need to massage it. And I like to just rotate it and press gently in on your plastic grower's pot until it's just ready to come out. Even though most of the roots are at the bottom, it's not 75%. So I would say that this plant doesn't need to be up-potted desperately, but it's fine. You want to make some room, and again, this is the root ball that we talked about. Root ball. And you're just going to want to gently massage and loosen that root ball. And see how I'm sort of doing it with the soil falling into the new pot? And just, by the way, in real life, you would do this outside. Anyway, so you're gonna massage and see what I mean. We're having the soil mass fall into that same pot. So we're mixing the soil together. Dirty, isn't it? So you just want to gently place it. You're not trying to bury all of the roots either. And then you can just, and dirt's reusable. Your dirt doesn't go bad if it falls on the ground. That's not how this works. I would go so far as to say there's no 5-second rule when it comes to soil. All right, and so then we are just going to be adding a little bit more soil. You want to gently press down because that will eliminate any air pockets that might dry your roots out. So finally, you just want to add a little bit of water to it, and you're going to want to water pretty slowly, especially if that new potting mix that you're adding is dry. So you want to be making sure that most of the water that you're pouring in isn't draining out right away. You want it to hold in place. So the best way to do that is to water slowly. We're pretty much done. Like I said before, do this outside because this is a dirty affair. So I do have one final thing to ask you. These grower pots, nursery pots, sometimes people call them, do not throw them away. Personally, I like to keep them, and when I have a smaller plant that's moving up into this size, I'll just plant into there because most of my pots don't have drainage holes, and it makes my life easier. But some people like to pot right into their decor pots. Some people like having drainage, and I totally feel you and I understand. But please, still don't throw it away. Most of our big box partners do have recycling programs, and if you go to the garden centers, you'll usually see a rack in the back that has either plastic trays or sometimes more growers pots. if you just add to there, the retailers make sure that those get recycled. That way we're not producing more plastic or having this end up in an ocean. We only have one planet, and it's so simple to just take a piece of plastic back to a store where you already shop, and it can have such a big impact if we all do it. And that wraps up repotting. This was originally intended to be the final video in our beginner series. We covered light, water, fertilizer, and of course, moving a plant from one pot to another pot. If you have more questions, please let us know in the comments down below. We would love to make more guides to help you all succeed with our plants. It's so important to us that everyone enjoys this hobby and can share it with others and really cherishes the plants that they own. These are living things, and when they bring light and life to your home, that's what we're here for. So please let us know any questions you have. Feel free to reach out. We are here to help, and look forward to seeing more.